Did did you ever walk into a room and completely forget why you walked in the first place? Did you ever start recording a video and forget what you were going to say? This is the Daniel Nuttall Show. I just stumbled upon the very first book on sociology written by Herbert Spencer in 1873. When I looked it up, modern sociologists were panning it, discouraging people from reading it, telling them that it had marginal value due to the fact that it lacked certain insights that modern sociology has since acquired. Of course, modern sociology is a cesspool of progressive ideology and cultural Marxism, so I got curious. Why would modern exponents of the field discourage people from reading its foundational document? This seems strange to me. The Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith, written in 1776, is still regarded as a holy book in the field of economics. Likewise, The Origin of Species by Charles Darwin from 1859 is still treated as foundational in any class on evolutionary biology. So why was Herbert Spencer's 1873 book, Study of Sociology, suppressed? The answer to that is that it teaches people to study institutions in society and to not be uncritically slavish to them, to not regard government with superstitious awe, and to attribute to it more competence than it actually has. Spencer outlines various institutions in society, from government to religion to academia to marriage, and explains how these serve basic functions. By removing one, you can't easily swap it out for another. For instance, if the job requires a screwdriver, using a hammer will not fix the problem. Likewise, when you remove religion from a society, you can't solve the problems addressed by religion with recourse to government programs. But as Spencer laments, people act little different from savages in mistaking causation. Instead of logical reasons for things happening, they come up with superstitious, irrational reasons. Here's an excerpt from the book.
The connections among social phenomena should be so little understood need not surprise us if we note the ideas which prevail respecting the connections among much simpler phenomena. Minds left ignorant of physical causation are unlikely to appreciate clearly, if at all, that causation so much more subtle and complex which runs through the actions of incorporated men. In almost every house, servants and those who employ them alike believe that a poker leaned up in front of the bars or across them makes the fire burn. And you will be told very positively that experience proves the efficacy of the device, the experience being that the poker has been repeatedly so placed and the fire has repeatedly burned. And no comparisons have been made with cases in which the poker was absent and all other conditions as before. In the same circles, the old prejudice against sitting down 13 to dinner still survives. There actually exists among ladies who have been at finishing school of the highest character, and among some gentlemen who pass as intelligent, the conviction that adding or subtracting one from a number of people who eat together will affect the fates of some among them. And this state of mind is again displayed at the card table by the opinion that so-and-so is always lucky or unlucky, that influences are at work which on average determine more good cards to one person than to another. Clearly, those in whom the consciousness of causation in these simple cases is so vague may be expected to have the wildest notions of social causation. Whoever even entertains the supposition that a poker put across the fire can make it burn proves himself to have neither a qualitative nor a quantitative idea of physical causation. And if during his life his experiences of material objects and actions have failed to give him an idea so accessible and so simple, it is not likely that they have given him ideas of the qualitative and quantitative relations of cause and effect holding throughout society. Hence, there is nothing to exclude irrational interpretations and disproportioned hopes. Where other superstitions flourish, political superstitions will take root. A consciousness in which there lives the idea that spilling salt will be followed by some evil, obviously allied as it is to the consciousness of the savage, filled with beliefs in omens and charms, gives a home to other beliefs like those of the savage. It may not have faith in the potency of medicine bags and idols, and may even wonder how any being can reverence a thing shaped with his own hands, and yet it readily entertains subtler forms of the same feelings. For in those whose modes of thought we have been contemplating, there is a tacit supposition that a government molded by themselves has some efficiency beyond that naturally possessed by a certain group of citizens subsidized by the rest of the citizens.
Suffice it to say, Spencer's book was groundbreaking. He literally invented the term sociology. But now he's all but hidden from modern sociology students in whom a superstition about government competence is being cultivated. Of course, Spencer outlines all the different institutions in a society that influence it, and he makes the point that government is not a substitute for religion. By removing one institution and swapping it out for another, you get bad knock-on effects. One website called Academy of Ideas has an interesting video on why the lack of religion breeds mental illness. Their thesis is that by removing religion, you remove meaning, purpose, what the Greeks called a telos. We've discussed this concept before of the telos. It just means the end goal of a thing. The telos of a refrigerator is to keep your food cold. The telos of a calculator is to help you decipher sums. Well, people have teloses too. The telos of a medical student, for instance, is to become a doctor. Happiness is achieved by fulfilling a telos. Religion was one way that man was offered a telos, namely, to refine himself and attain elevation sufficient to commune with his creator. By removing religion, you remove a telos from the people. You remove a coherent narrative story arc, and this is destructive to a person's sense of self, which leads to anxiety and depression. See here.
The less meaning our life has, the more we will suffer. And this is exemplified by the experience of many schizophrenics who struggle to view life through the coherence of a narrative. In Madness and Modernism, Louis Sass quotes a schizophrenic patient who said, "I feel as if I've lost the continuity linking the events in my past. Instead of a series of events linked by continuity, my past just seems like disconnected fragments." And as McGilchrist explains concerning this disturbing lack of a coherent life narrative, if your world disintegrates through a lack of narrative, you stop seeing anything in context, and it becomes puzzling, even frightening.
Note all the kids on anti-anxiety pharmaceuticals. It's exploding in our society. You see all these little kids with pill holders designating the day of the week like senior citizens with their meds, but these kids are like 8. This is a result of telling people that they're not miraculous souls, but that their only goal in life is to be consumers. The result of removing meaning from their life, context, pattern recognition. Aristotle talks about how civilized men have pattern recognition, whereas to the savage, life is random, out of context, frightening. Like the Greek philosopher Thales of Miletus, he was the first guy to discern that eclipses take place at mathematical intervals and correctly predicted them. He even made a machine to give accurate forecasts. Until Thales, Greek culture, like everybody else, attributed eclipses to the gods. Compare this to the Native Americans in the Caribbean. Columbus scammed them by pretending to create an eclipse when in fact he just mathematically predicted one. The natives were terrified by eclipses. They would fall to their knees and tremble when they saw one. So when Columbus appeared to have power over them, they collapsed at his feet and worshipped him as a god. This is only mentioned to illustrate how much anxiety they had related to mathematically predicted phenomena. Without pattern recognition, you live your life in terror. Everything is a potential threat. It's why kids are afraid of the dark. They can't see anything and it conduces to an unfocused anxiety. So-called social justice warriors are in a constant state of anxiety for this reason. Their history, heritage, and literature have been torn away from them. In addition, God has been removed from their lives. Philosophy has been deprived them. Their existence has been stripped of a telos, a meaning, a coherent story arc. They have no sense of a pattern in their existence. Because of this, anxiety arises, and like a cornered animal, they react with disproportionate violence. Fear breeds a fight or flight response. Pattern recognition, as provided by philosophy, removes that fear. It reveals patterns in reality. These kids don't need pharmaceuticals. They need philosophy, religion. All religion is philosophy in a narrative form. Not everyone is a philosopher. They don't conceptualize things intellectually. For most people, they can learn deep truths from religious stories and symbols that they can implement in their own lives. Remove religion from people's life, and you don't succeed in removing the religious impulse. People merely take that impulse and attach it to other things, like movie franchises or veganism or political parties. And this is where we started the presentation, talking about why modern sociology courses suppress Herbert Spencer's foundational work in the field. He asked people to use the same critical thinking faculties and logic that they used in observing a bacterium under a microscope when they assessed other institutions, like government. He invited people to not be superstitious about the power of the state or dogmatic about the competence of government, to use pattern recognition to determine true causation and not the fake causation of a lucky pair of socks or a rabbit's foot, or the belief in the inherent competence and altruism of government. Without critical thinking and pattern recognition, people are reduced to savages, quaking at the sight of an eclipse and willing to accept any con man as a new god. If you like these videos, you'll love the New American Magazine. It has insightful articles and penetrating analysis of current events. It doesn't just tell you that an event happened, it tells you why it happened. Go check out the New American Magazine by going to thenewamerican.com.